Hi, welcome again. In the previous class, we looked at the cash flows of a mortgage pass-through investor. And we pointed out that at the end of the class that every investor in a mortgage pass-through is exposed to prepayment risk. Either exposed to some form of contraction risk when prepayment speeds accelerate, or extension risk when prepayment speeds slows down. In this class, we want to see how we can actually manage either contraction risk or extension risk, or even both of them. Now, we want to discuss what we call collateralized mortgage obligation. Collateralized mortgage obligation, CMOs. Now, like I pointed out at the beginning, prepayment is a problem because it distorts the cash flow for an investor in a mortgage pass-through. We manage this prepayment by basically redistributing the cash flow on a mortgage pass-through. Now, when we distribute the cash flow on a mortgage pass-through by creating different tranches of a mortgage-backed security, now the structure that you have at hand, the structure that results from redistributing the cash flow on a mortgage pass-through is called a collateralized mortgage obligation, or otherwise called CMO. Now you create different tranches, and then you now distribute the cash flow, the principal repayment, the prepayment, and the interest. You distribute this cash flow in such a way that you manage prepayment, what we call time tranching. The structure you have by doing this is called a collateralized mortgage obligation. Now, it's important to understand that, or to note that, now, you cannot eliminate prepayment risk. No matter the structure that you put in place, prepayment risk can only be transferred, it's like a form of insurance. Now, it is transferred to some other person who wants to bear it. You cannot totally eliminate prepayment. You can only transfer it to some other parties who want to assume the risk. Now, let's see how we can create different structures to manage prepayment risk. Let's see different types of CMOs that we can create to manage prepayment risk. Now, the first kind of CMO I want to discuss here is what we call sequential pay tranche. Now, what is a sequential pay tranche? Now, a sequential pay tranche CMO is basically a mortgage-backed security that you create by creating different tranches. Now, when you create different tranches, the waterfall, that is the way you pay the different tranches, you now pay them in a sequence. You pay tranche 1 first before you pay tranche 2. After you finish paying tranche 2, you pay tranche 3, and then tranche 4, and so on and so forth. Now, we are referring to principal repayment, of course. Now, let's see the rule here. Now, first, distribute all principal repayments to tranche 1 until principal balance for tranche 1 is 0. After tranche 1 is paid off, distribute all principal payments to tranche 2 until the principal balance for tranche 2 is paid off or is 0. After tranche 2 is paid off, then do the same for tranche 3, and so on and so forth. What you are doing here is you are paying the different tranches in sequence to manage either contraction risk or extension risk. Let's take an example from the curriculum to illustrate sequential pay tranche. Now, to illustrate the sequential pay CMO, let us use a hypothetical transaction called CMO-01. Now, assume that the collateral for CMO-01 is the mortgage pass-through security described in Exhibit 2, our previous mortgage pass-through. That is now the security. Now, what we're saying here is that now when you are creating a collateralized mortgage obligation, or CMO, in this case, the collateral is a pool of mortgage pass-through. Now, in the case of mortgage pass-through, the collateral was a pool of what? Mortgage loans. Now, in the case of a mortgage pass-through, you are now redistributing the entire cash flow, that total cash flow on the last column 9. The principal repayment, the prepayment, and then the interest. You are distributing that cash flow. So, in creating a collateralized mortgage obligation, you are basically putting a pool of mortgage pass-through together to create a mortgage, a CMO. So, you see, it's getting more complex. Okay, assume the collateral for CMO is the mortgage pass-through. In our case, we are assuming only just one mortgage pass-through. Ideally, you have a sequence of a pool of mortgage pass-through. Now recall that the total par value of the collateral is 800 million US dollars. Now the pass-through rate was 5.5% if you still remember, and then the WACC is 6%. The WAM is 357 months. Now from this 800 million of collateral, 4 tranches are created as shown in Exhibit 3. Now in this simple structure, the coupon rate is the same for each tranche and also the same as the mortgage pass-through securities coupon rate. Ideally, the coupon rate here should be smaller, or should be lower, it should be less than what you are getting from the mortgage pass-through, which is the collateral. It should be below the, but for simplicity's sake, we are assuming, the curriculum is assuming the coupon rate is same thing as the pass-through rate you are getting from the collateral. And ideally, this rate also is not supposed to be the same, depending on the risk of the different tranches. So you have 4 tranches here, tranches A, B, C, and D. These are the face value, totaling 800 million. Now, let's look at the waterfall. Now, payment rules. For payment of monthly coupon interest, disburse monthly coupon interest to each tranche on the basis of the amount of principal outstanding for each tranche at the beginning of the month. So everybody takes monthly interest. Now, but let's look at the principal repayment. For disbursement of principal payment, disburse principal payments to tranche A until it is completely paid off. After tranche A is completely paid off, disburse principal payments to tranche B until it's completely paid off. After tranche B is completely paid off, disburse principal payment to tranche C until it's completely paid off. After tranche C is completely paid off, disburse principal payments to tranche D until it is completely paid off. So you are paying the tranches in sequence. A is paid first, before B, before C, before D. Now, if you do that, this is what you're going to get as the average life. Now, you notice that the collateral, our projected prepayment speed was 165 PSA, is 8.6 years. Now, if you pay A first, the average life is 3.4 years. Average life for tranche B is 7.3 years, tranche C 7.9 years, tranche D 15.2 years. Now, if you look at this table critically, you notice that the collateral 8.6 years is here. Now, remember that it is from this collateral that we created tranche A, tranche B, C, and D. Now, 2 tranches are paid earlier than the collateral, and 2 tranches are paid later than the collateral. We'll discuss that shortly. Now, okay, the CMO structure provides some level of protection against prepayment risk. Now, what we did by creating different 4 tranches is to manage either contraction risk or prepayment risk. Now, the earlier tranches A and B, which are paid earlier, let's look at the schedule. Tranche A, this is our projected prepayment speed, is paid in 3.4 years. Now, this is paid in 7.3 years. Now, we said that these earlier tranches are exposed to contraction risk because they are paid earlier than the collateral is paid in 8.6 years. So these 2 are exposed to what we call contraction risk. Whereas these 2 tranches, the later tranches C and D, are exposed to what we call extension risk. Now, because these ones are exposed to contraction risk, but on the other way around, they are protected from extension risk. So we say that tranche C and D gives protection to tranche A and D. Sorry, tranche C and D gives give protection to tranches A and B against extension risk. Same thing here. Now, these 2 tranches are exposed to extension risk, but they are protected against contraction risk. And that protection comes from who? Tranches A and B. So this is the idea behind creating a sequential pay tranche. You are basically managing either extension risk or contraction risk. Now, A and B are exposed to contraction risk. C and D are exposed to what? Extension risk. But they are protected against contraction risk, whereas these guys are protected against extension risk. This is the beauty of sequential pay tranche and securitization. Okay, now the next thing we want to discuss is what we call planned amortization class tranche. Now, when we discuss sequential pay tranche, we notice that it's either you're exposed to a contraction risk or you're exposed to what? Extension risk. Is it possible for us to structure a CMO that is protected against both contraction risk and extension risk? Now, A planned amortization class bond or planned amortization class tranche, sometimes we call it a pack bond. Now, it offers what you call greater predictability of the cash flows, which you don't find in the case of sequential pay tranche. You notice that sequential pay tranche, some other tranches are paid much earlier, some other ones are paid much later. So, and prepayment speeds can play a lot of roles. Now, if we go back to our schedule here, you notice that even within tranche A, when prepayment speed accelerates to 600, it can actually get back cash flows in 1.6 years, barely 1.5 years. Now, but the prepayment speed goes back to the standard benchmark, it can take as long as 4.7 years. The same thing to each of the tranches. So there's a lot of variability in the average life of these tranches, tranche A, B, C, and D. Now, this variability is caused by what? Prepayment, the speed of the prepayment, the actual experience. Now, what we're doing here is basically projected prepayment.